Every Sunday morning, Janine Bryant of Changing Spaces SRS is here with a positive attitude for a challenging task. It's easy right-sizing on KFOR FM, 103.3, 1240 AM. Practical tips for your right-sizing journey. Good morning, Janine.
Good morning, Dale.
We've had conversations on this show about do-it-yourself right-sizing for a person in their own home, looking around and realizing I need to get rid of stuff and the challenges that come from that. Today's scenario is helping a parent or helping a loved one empty out their house. And it's all part of Chapter 4 in your book, Ready to Right Size. Right here in front of me. Every Sunday I'm here with Janine's book, Ready to Right Size. It's a different dynamic, though, because it's not just a relationship between me and my stuff. It's a relationship between my parents or loved one stuff and me. That can be a tricky dynamic.
Absolutely. And you know what, Dale? The reason I wanted to tackle this subject is because it really is a topic that pretty much everyone is going to have to deal with at some point or another in their lives. At some point, all of us are going to have to empty out a house, right? It might be our house, or more likely it might be our parents' house, a grandparent's house, a sibling's house, aunt or uncle. You know, either way, it's because someone has moved away and downsized, moved to a retirement community, and then their home has to be emptied, or after they pass away. In order to sell a home, most of the time, the home has to be empty. And emptying out a home is a big task, and it's challenging, and that's why I wanted to talk all about it today. It is a complex issue.
If you want to get started on this process, you can get a copy of Janine's book, and you can sit and look at it just like I'm doing right now. And it's Chapter 4, Helping a Parent Through the Right Sizing. But before we get too deep into the conversation, how can someone pick up a book, Janine?
Absolutely. We've got copies at our office, Changing Spaces SRS, so you can give us a call. Our phone number is 402-483-0555, and it's also available on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon.com, you can search Ready to Right Size. You'll find it there. I've also got copies available on the website, easyrightsizing.com.
There you go. Let's address adult children first of all. Stop using your parents' home as a storage unit. Guilty. I was guilty.
Bingo. Absolutely. You can't expect your parents to start emptying out their home if you are still storing stuff in it, right? I always tell, older adults that I speak to, you have done a great job of raising your adult children. Stop letting them use your home as a storage unit. I would suggest picking an age where your adult children need to either decide to get rid of an item or take the item to their own home, and if they don't have room in their own home, then they can pay for a storage unit to store those items. But you can't start nagging your folks to empty out their home if you've still got some of your junk in it.
There's another way an adult child can get started with their parent, and that is to give them a little bit of a nudge, talk with them about items they wish to pass on to family members while they still can make that decision.
Absolutely. And one of the greatest times to do this is when you have grandchildren or nieces and nephews who are leaving the nest and they're maybe setting up their first apartment or their first home. That's a great time for older adults to pass on even just some practical items to members in their family who might need an extra mixer in their kitchen or an extra twin bed in the guest room or whatever. That's a great time to unload some of those items. But then we also want to talk about some of those keepsake items that are in your parents' home. If they have items that they really wish you would take and keep for keepsake, maybe it's an important part of your family's history, now's the time to talk about it, and more importantly, to talk about the story behind those items, and then pass them on now while the older adult is still around to talk about why that item is important. So it kind of helps people to be a little bit more intentional as they start emptying out their homes. And it also helps, I think, when an older adult is having a hard time letting go of their stuff, if they know that an item is going to a family member, boy, it makes it so much easier to let go of that stuff. It really does.
All right, let's role play here. Now, I'm the child that is being given or being offered some of these items. I don't have room, Mom and or Dad. What's a good comeback line for that?
Absolutely, yes. Okay, so if you are in a situation where an older adult is trying to give you items and you just simply don't have room for them, or maybe you don't necessarily want those items, explain to your loved one that your home is full. And so in order to keep some of the keepsakes that are important to family members, they really have to be choosy. Say, hey, Mom and Dad or Grandma and Grandpa, my home's already full, so I really don't have room for a lot, but I want to make sure that I keep the most important things. And so maybe I'm going to limit myself to 4 boxes of things from Grandma and Grandpa's house or whatever, because that I have room for, but I can't take it all. And so, and when we talk to our older adult clients, we really remind them, of course, that you guys heard me say this before, objects don't hold memories, people do, okay? And so just because your daughter or your granddaughter doesn't want something that is being offered to them, it's not that they're rejecting you or rejecting your love. They simply just don't have room for that item, and they're choosing not to accept it at this time. However, okay, another thing you've all heard me say before is to prioritize people over stuff. So my advice is to gently resist in the beginning if you don't want an item. But if this issue persists and it becomes apparent that it's really important to the older adult in your life that you take, a certain item, maybe it's a set of your grandmother's china or what have you, you still maybe don't have room for it, you don't really want it. But I remember the words of a writer, Gretchen Rubin is her name, and she once said that sometimes we can be generous by taking. And I think that's such a powerful statement, because if you are in a situation where you are working with a loved one who's emptying out their home, it's heart-wrenching for them to think about, for instance, in our example, this set of our grandmother's china. It's heart-wrenching for them to think about that going to the consignment shop or to Goodwill or whatever. You can be generous by simply taking that item off of their hands. They're going to feel great about it. And I'm going to say, between you and me, that doesn't mean that you have to keep that item forever. But take it for now as a gift. Consider it a service that you're giving to your loved one so that they can feel better about downsizing.
Janine Bryant joining me of Changing Spaces SRS. Every Sunday morning, Janine and I are here to talk about right-sizing. I want to go back to something that you said, people over stuff. That can be sticky because my son, an only son, he gets it or nobody gets it. So that's that's an easy decision.
Right.
I come from a family of 6. Now, there were a couple of us that wanted the same item. How do you and your staff get in the middle of that?
Yeah, so that tagline, prioritizing people over stuff, still applies. Even so, it applies when you're fighting. Sometimes families fight over who has to take something. I don't want it. No, you take it. No, you take it. And then sometimes we are in the opposite situation where siblings, lots of times are fighting over the same object. And again, we encourage you to put people over stuff. And so that even if you are in a situation where at the end of the day, after all of the debate back and forth, you don't end up getting the item that you wanted from your loved one, to let it go. Because when we prioritize stuff over people, the result is always negative. And when we prioritize people over stuff, the result is always positive. Now, some practical tips for dividing up some items that belong to a loved one that we've experienced with our clients. Sometimes our clients are our best teachers. We've had families that we've worked with make it into a game, okay? So one suggestion that I would have would be to gather all of the siblings in the room. If you can exclude the in-laws, that's always easiest, okay? So let's say you're cleaning out mom and dad's house, get all of the siblings in the same room, and then everyone draws a card from a deck of cards. And then that's how you determine the person with the highest card gets to take the first pick of an item, and then the next card, and so forth. That's one way of making it into a game. We've worked with a lot of families who have done this process and gotten all the siblings together, Maybe you have some wine or a couple of beers, and it ends up being kind of a party or a celebration as you're walking through the home and dividing up people's things. And whenever I see a family who has done that after their parents have passed away, I say to them, boy, your mom and dad would be so happy right now, looking down on you and seeing all the kids getting along and dividing up the stuff peacefully.
Janine, we did that with photographs. My mom
nice.
had boxes and boxes of photographs, the old Polaroids and the old the type that would slide right out and you get the picture right away. A lot of those, and it's exactly what my brothers and sisters did, because there were pictures with multiple kids in it.
Yeah.
All right, so who gets it? The youngest one, because it's a photograph with him or her and two of the siblings or of grandparents. It did make it a lot easier to do it as a family.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of one last celebration, especially if you're emptying out a home. Maybe it's the family home where you all grew up in preparation for putting that house on the market and selling it. It can be one last celebration where you're all together in that home that meant so much to you all.
All right, Janine, again, how can folks pick up the book? Because we have referred to it today, and it'd be a good idea if we do that on a regular basis. Maybe next week we'll do the same. So we'll give people a week to get the book. How can they get a hold of it?
Absolutely, yeah. You head on over to Amazon.com and you can search for Ready to Right Size. You can order it right there. Or you can contact us at our office at 402-483-0555, and we can get you a copy as well. They are $12.95 each.
And, of course, you can join us every Sunday morning here on KFOR FM 103.3, 1240 AM for Easy Right Sizing with Janine Bryant of Changing Spaces SRS. We'll talk again next week, Janine.
Okay, sounds good, Dale. Thank you.